Lily.
What?
So
I'm
not panicky.
Lily.
I haven't bought new clothes in a long time, and I'm just wondering, where could our body get some new, cool, hip clothes?
Well, I'm assuming you want them to be mostly handmade and made in Russia, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's the rule that you live by. And all hip people should live by.
It's true. Hip people specifically who live in Manhattan or Brooklyn.
Well, you could live in any borough or the state of New York, in fact. In fact, you can live anywhere because I happen to know the exact place where you should go.
On December 8th and 9th.
You even know.
What is going to happen?
Fortichka!
Yes.
On December... We gotta really drill the pronunciation.
On December
Sorry.
8th and 9th, we are holding a pop-up of young, new Russian designers on the Lower East Side of Manhattan and I'm going to give you the address now.
Write this down, folks. Get your pens and pencils out.
332 East 4th Street, New York, New York. And we'll be there December 8th and 9th. That's a weekend. It's in like 3 weeks from now. And yeah, we'll be selling clothes by a bunch of different designers. Arrow 404, Murmurism, Daria Urkaneva. Is that how you pronounce her last name? Urkaneva. A bunch of different people, like 20 plus young Russian
Not
designers.
that anybody knows who those people are, but you will know.
You don't, but you're going to learn.
And the cool thing is that, yeah, we brought all these clothes over the ocean for you. We didn't set an exact time, which you're just sort of avoiding. It's going to be all day, though, so don't worry.
All day, baby.
So if you're in New York and you... or you're like trying to plan a trip to New York, you should just come for that weekend and do all your holiday shopping at Fortichka. And also you can just follow us on Instagram at Fortichka_, or you can go to our website to look at a yellow background with the address on it. And that's at fortichka.site, conveniently.
Lily has only slept with a couple people to get where she is.
Oh my God.
And it was a very strategic move.
That's fucked up. Don't spread rumors about me. We're going to have a Twitter war soon.
Yeah. Between the Shoes in Russia account and your personal
My
account.
success has been entirely built on unfulfilled sexual tensions. Yes.
Yeah, that is the truth.
So it's like, that's okay.
She doesn't actually suck any dick. She just acts like maybe if you give her a job, she might consider it.
That's so fucked up.
But that's actually a good tactic.
Nobody can get in trouble for that. Yeah. And nobody can blame you. It's just humans are allowed to be sexually attracted to each other and do nice things for each other. Excuse me. And also my talent, hard work, and smart mind.
Right, of course.
Well, it's true.
And my nice ass.
And my American privilege.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. The point is, sex is everywhere in life. And I feel like, actually, Paglia would say that, or doesn't she say that, like, people should just, like, not complain about harassment or something?
I don't know, probably.
She doesn't say they shouldn't complain about harassment, but she's really all on board for, like, you can't make people into robots. Like, obviously, there's going to be, like, sexual
she's
tension.
Like, anti-neutering.
At work and stuff like that, which is true. And, like, that's fine. I think that when people start being like, what? We can't, like, be humans? We're robots? It's like, you can be humans, but
I want to be a dick-sucking robot at work. How about that?
It's like
a sex doll. That's a kind of robot.
I'm ready to get into the podcast.
All right, I'll try to stop you.
Wait, do you know enough about the Slutsky character to talk about him? Because I don't know that much about him. I know all about the Meduza guy, though.
I don't know much about him except for, like, the 3 articles I read on Meduza.
Well, that's fine. That's more than I know. I just focused in on the editor because I, like, got into a wormhole, which is his Facebook page right now.
We're just gonna tear this man apart.
This shit feel like I won't ever make it home. Traffic's backed up, I got to get off of this road.
From Diddlesburg.
From Gropetown.
From St.
USA.
Petersburg. No, I mean, whatever. I think that he probably groped in Riga. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. From... Let's not bring this. Let's not bring that dirty laundry to St. Petersburg. From St. Petersburg
And Brooklyn.
this is She's in Russia. I'm Lily.
And I'm Smith.
Oh.
Hear that?
Yeah, I
train?
heard that. So loud. You must be in a formerly industrial city.
Where a lot of brothers just love each other.
Oh. Is it the city of brotherly love?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I was like, why are you saying that? You're not allowed to say brother.
Yeah, that's what the city of brotherly love means.
Okay, this episode today is just us chatting about sexual harassment in Russia from some...
Harassment.
Oh, sorry, harassment. Heresy. From, like, basically us just gossiping about some big cases. How do you feel about putting up the support us bit to the front of the podcast? Huh?
I'm not against doing it right now. I don't think that we should do it all the time. But yeah, if you support women, then you can support these two women.
Oh my God, Smith, that's so lame. If you support, you should donate to our podcast because we're women. No.
Yeah.
We just want to remind you that there's a...
And it's very expensive to be a lady.
Oh my God, fuck. I hate that. Yeah, just long story short, if you have the means and desire, we would really appreciate if you would support our making the podcast at patreon.com/She's in Russia.
What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about Slutsky or you want to talk about Meduza?
Let's just get into Meduza. I don't know anything about Slutz, and I feel bad for like damning the name of Boris Slutsky with that man. It's not Boris, Leonid.
We need to improve Boris's SEO.
Boris. Yeah, poor guy.
This is going to come out like a week late, so if people have already moved on, we're sorry.
Ugh. Most people probably don't know what we're talking about. So do you want me to break down like what actually happened?
Well, I think if you guys don't know what Meduza is.
Oh, what is Meduza? Go back that far.
Yeah. I mean, our listeners probably know because we've referenced them a fair amount, but maybe just give them like a one sentence.
It's one of the most popular, so like independent oppositionist publications, online publications in Russia. Meduza does a lot of stuff, I think this is going to become relevant, that, aren't exactly newsy. Like, they like to do these sort of, like, educational things. Like, they like to do this series of cards, they call them, that are like, what is sexual assault? Or, like, what is X? Whatever.
Right. They're very, like, progressive.
Yeah, they're progressive. I mean, and also the fact they're definitely they're a popular publication. They're liberal in the American sense of the word liberal rather than the Russian sense. And, that's their position. That's their line. So they like to pick up a lot of trends that, like, Western media are into, like, MeToo, or I'm just using MeToo because that's what we're talking about, but other trends also. And, like, talk about it in a more open way than probably state-owned media would. I think their actual independence is subject to question, but we're not getting into that right now. So what we are getting into is that there's a scandal recently, which is that their editor-in-chief has recently resigned, given a whole set of circumstances involving him allegedly sexually harassing the wife of an employee of Meduza. Okay? What went down? This guy, young guy, he's like, I don't know, in his 30s or something, was at a company corporate party, how we have those, and got really fucking drunk to the point of, as he says, not remembering, that's his words, his position. And we'll get back into that. Yes, we will. And touches the ass of, grabs the ass of the wife of someone who works at Meduza. And whatever, wife, not wife, does it matter? No. Grabs the ass of a woman and says to her, and I quote, "You're the only one at this party that I can harass and nothing will happen because of it." Or do you get what I mean? Does that make sense?
is the implication right? Yeah, is the implication there that like she's the only non-employee at the party, or like what the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know. Like, exactly. That's a really good question. Is it because she personally is weak and won't say anything, or is it because she's not an employee? That makes sense. I think that makes sense. Not an employee.
But like there was probably other non-employees there.
Maybe not though. It was a corporate party. Maybe nobody brought their like significant others.
Okay.
Maybe people only brought their husbands, and so he's not gay, so he's not gonna grope a man. So maybe he's the only like woman. So he goes, "You're the only one at this party that I can harass." That quote is the words of the woman whose ass was groped. He personally, again, does not remember. But remember...
Well, that's what he says.
Right. And she says the word harass. He's not even like... It's already such a fucked up thing to say, but he doesn't even say... Like, he doesn't say ass grab. He says harass, because he's making one of those harassment jokes that, like, a lot of Russians and maybe Americans like to make.
Which is, like, I'm acknowledging that this is a trend right now, like, sexual workplace harassment, and I'm making a joke about it whilst doing it.
Right, and you can make jokes about it left and right. They're not funny, but like it's, you know, they're literally just not funny. It's not like, oh, I'm offended. There's like actually there's no humor content there, but like you can make that joke, and I've heard people make this joke personally where you're like men saying like, I love you guys, and that's not harassment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, but you're not in the process of touching anyone's ass. So it doesn't have the same weight and like dickdom as that statement does. I just can't believe he said that. So anyway,
I imagine as like a waiter's walking by, he hears this. He's like, "Oh, sir, here's your bag of dicks." Just keeps going. Takes it off a metal tray.
"Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It's a little late, but there you go." Oop, fresh out the oven. Yeah. So,
and nobody is around to hear this.
I guess not, you know, like, or no witnesses came forth. But this woman, like, what are her options here, right? She can say, like, fuck you, or she can say what she did say, which is maybe, I don't actually know the story. Maybe she told her husband, who, this is his boss, right? So maybe she told her husband, and maybe he said, like, fuck that, like, we're going to do something about this. But who knows what went down. But, like, she could have, just responded by being like, ew.
Yeah.
But she decided to, or she or people around her decided to take it a little bit further. And I don't know. What do you think?
What do I think about the thing in general?
Yeah.
Okay, so the problem is I'm trying to be open, like heart, open mind here, because it's a different setting, i.e. Russia. But I've been like, you know this, I've been generally soured by like the MeToo stuff. And so my immediate reaction to anything falling under the Me Too category is like irritation.
Right. I understand that.
Right. So in this particular case, this is okay. I think we should discuss the fallout a little bit, which is basically like she told her husband, I guess like the husband somehow it like got out within Meduza that this had happened. The editor in chief was like about to get on an airplane and then like found out that he'd been accused of this and immediately like turned around and went back to the office and like called a meeting,
apologized, etc.
He apologized to the husband in person and then wrote a letter to the wife of the guy, the person he had actually like harassed, apologizing. And then he stepped down for like 2 weeks while they did an investigation into it, and they found
they being like Meduza's board. Yeah, they were like, we need to, like, he needs to not be the editor-in-chief while the board discusses.
Right. And they do an investigation, which I think means like interview everybody that works there and try to find evidence of that either happening that night or like him having that sort of behavior at any other point in time. And they couldn't find him having that behavior at any other point in time. And so he was like reinstated. And also the guy who's the husband was given like 3 options, which was to stay, to like mutually decide to end the relationship and to receive severance pay, or to resign without severance pay. And he like took the 3rd option, which was a little confusing to me, but
he resigned.
His reasons. Yeah, he resigned.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, it's really good that he didn't take money for this, and it's just like, what? Like,
okay, so this is God, I was like thinking, I was like, do I actually want to say this on a recording?
Wait, before you get there, sorry, you just missed the last step, which is that the board decides to reinstate him on November 6th. They're like, okay, it's fine. You can come work for us. And then on November 9th, So 3 days later, he posts on Facebook that he is resigning. So instead of being fired, he resigns. So that could have been some kind of internal discussion. We don't know.
I think it's more likely that because the outcry was so negative.
Yeah, definitely. Like, but those 3 days were full of people being like, wow, you guys are huge hypocrites, etc. And we can get into that. But then on November 9th, he posts on Facebook this longish post about like how he is resigning. Okay, so now you can read. What do you want to say?
I guess, okay. There's like two things going on here for me, because the first is that I guess I kind of get why we weight sexual transgressions differently than other forms of transgressions. And by that I mean, like, let's say he had
made a
racist
comment,
like made a racist racism is also a hard one, but let's say he had gotten very drunk at the party and he had shoved someone like really hard and they had fallen down, and like maybe a lot of people saw it. In that scenario, I would imagine it's plausible that would have been interpreted very differently, and he would not have been harangued so much and expected to resign. Like, he probably would have had to apologize, etc., and like there probably would have been an investigation, but there wouldn't have been like the public outcry in the same way. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm bringing this up is like I believe that there are certain things along the like sexual transgression spectrum that should be like, if not forgiven, like at least the person gets a second chance. So like in my mind, like that's an extremely sleazy and like fucking dumb thing to do. And it's possible that it does speak to something more about his moral character, but I don't know. But I don't know. I just feel like there's certain scenarios where somebody should be allowed to fuck up and then to sincerely apologize. And like that should be an okay scenario in some way.
Yeah. I mean, he could have also not resigned. I mean, there was a lot of like outcry,
like he chose to resign.
He resigned. I
so
mean,
that's
like,
his choice.
Well, that's what we're told. Like, it actually could have been an internal thing where they were like, we can't deal with this shit, but you can resign so that it looks good, you know?
Right.
So,
yeah.
But regardless, like, my thing is not, I hear what you're saying about like mistakes and everything, and a lot of people who are coming out in his defense, which there are a number of people, and they're all posting on his Facebook page and everything. You know, men and women coming out in his defense are saying similar things. Like, they're calling out a lot of things, like this is too much hysteria, blah, 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 things that like do sound reasonable, or like, you know, people need a second chance, or like he's a really good, you know, he does his job really well, like whatever, people make mistakes, people get drunk. Honestly, when I read his first post about the fact that he was just, I think it was the post, he didn't make comments while they were doing the investigation, so it was the post when they like reinstated him. He's like, here's what happened, everyone, like, hi friends, like it's on his personal Facebook page. He's like, I got really drunk and I did this thing, allegedly, you know, he like uses his journalism words, and doesn't admit to it, right? That's always cool. And then he's like, but the thing is, I didn't know about that until like a day later because when people told me, because I was so drunk that I don't remember. And I'm just like, okay, maybe Meduza isn't like, you know, the New York Times, but I mean, it isn't. But you're the fucking editor-in-chief of like,
why are you getting blackout drunk?
One of the most popular, at least like independent, non-state-owned fucking newspapers in Russia, and you, maybe need to not get blackout drunk especially when you're like at a party with people
your
that
employees.
Not even people you work with, but you're everyone's boss. You're the editor-in-chief. So it's like, if you are going to completely lose control, like at least do that with like, I don't know, not people you work with. It's just like so dumb. It's such a like lapse of judgment and so irresponsible that like I could see somebody getting fired just for that, you know? Like,
don't you think that probably comes from some sort of like internal culture at Meduza that's like, we're like family, like we're so close, et cetera, et cetera. And so that line is like really blurry, and it's hard for people to understand, like, okay, you can say like you love each other and you're really close, but it's still not appropriate for you to like get blackout drunk.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure just like knowing some people who are kind of from that same circle, that is exactly the case. And there is a confusing line, and I've had confusions with that line myself, as you know. And like everyone's like, we're so close, blah blah blah. But like still, like, I mean, I personally have to like think about that and think about like not getting blackout drunk at work parties. Like, it's just like, and I'm not a fucking editor-in-chief. It's one of those things.
I agree with you.
And it's so embarrassing, honestly, reading the Facebook post. I was just like, I'm like deeply, I don't know. I was embarrassed for him that he had to write that he like, are you 19 years old? Like, I don't remember because I was so drunk. It's like, are you in college? Like,
well, but the thing is, it's possible like it's possible he wasn't actually blackout drunk at all, and he's just using that as a defense because it's the only way in which he can say, I
didn't do this.
I don't do this. I don't have any memory of it. Like, he can't flat out say I didn't do it because maybe he knows if he actually knows if he did or not. So he's not going to straight up lie. And he's not going to admit to it either. So this is like the safest way to go.
I mean,
which is dumb.
It's really because it also is extremely like dumb to get blackout drunk. So it looks bad either way. But he, in his like latest post on November 9th, where he says that he's resigning, he also says he does that whole like sleazy thing where he's like, okay. So he says a few things about that he's resigning and that it's he's sad and like people were trying to destroy everything he built, that kind of bullshit. It's like, ew. Like, people weren't trying to destroy everything you built. They were trying to destroy your career, not what you built. Like, get over it. And then he says like about the so-called incident. It's like, it's not a so-called incident. It is an incident. Like, why are you doing that? Like, sort of just trying to push back against it or calling it, saying alleged and so-called. And then he says, I categorically refuse to admit to guilt in harassment and sexual assault. So he categorically refuses or whatever, denies that he is guilty of harassment and sexual assault.
Right, like he can't just straight up be like, I didn't do this thing that she said I did. He has to like cloud it with all this ridiculous language.
But also, it's not even cloud. I don't even just mean like how he's clouding it. I just mean like, really? Because I thought you didn't remember. So he's basically saying, even if that's true, that's not sexual assault. That's what he's saying. Right? I mean, that seems to me what he's saying.
It's not sexual assault. Let's stick with harassment.
Well, he uses
like
both.
Sexual assault feels more
But harassment, you're in a position of authority and you like use sleazy language while physically touching someone sexually. It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's totally gross and indefensible.
But is it not? But is it really not harassment? Like, he's categorically refusing to admit that it's harassment.
Well,
that seems...
The language is ambiguous, though.
Why?
Because it could be interpreted as him saying, I am not guilty of this thing that you say I'm guilty of.
Like, I didn't even do it.
Yeah, I didn't even do it, but he's not going to directly say that because maybe that's a lie. So he's going to like put some other words in there so you're like, what are you saying exactly?
I think given that he's claiming, given his not remembering story, that he's actually just saying like, I don't think that this is sexual harassment, and a lot of people are saying that also. So people who support him. So like, oh my God, there's so many like gross posts on his Facebook page right now, which he's allowing to be there. This whole thing, like this guy being like, I definitely don't like personally know Ivan Kolpakov, which is the name of the editor-in-chief. And like, I don't know if he actually touched someone's ass or whatever, right? Or whatever, how many times he apologized. But like, I can see what people are doing to him, and I feel really bad for him in this situation. And like, I don't know, then he says something about offended people should take their cases to the European court. It's like, that's fucked up.
Okay. It's a little funny though.
It is funny, but it's like all these people posting on his wall, it's just like obviously it's not directly from him, but he's sort of allowing them, he's not like, not deleting their posts.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not like one of those people. It's like, you have a responsibility to delete those sorts of things.
You're trying to delete assholes from your Facebook. Women are also posting, so.
in support of him.
Yeah, in support of him being like I just don't think that, I think this has like it's gotten too much, whatever, hysteria or whatever, like.
What's the word in Russian for hysteria?
Hysterica.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. This is not like actually specific to this particular case, because I feel like I don't care about this that much. Like, if he resigns, whatever. But there is a part of the like Me Too conversation that we're like not allowed to. It's like not built into the equation, which is like the contribution of that person's work to society as a whole. And I'm not doing that thing where like, oh, well, if you get enough karma points over here by like saving a bunch of starving children, then you get to rape as many women as you want. But I am saying, like, I think it's reasonable when you're deciding what the consequence for somebody is going to be, what is lost when that person like falls from grace, you know?
Yeah.
So like in the case of this guy, I don't know, maybe he's like an outstanding editor and he's editor-in-chief and he's the reason that like Meduza has done so well, and like maybe a lot of the investigative journalism they've done is like because of him. And so maybe, like, let's pretend that's the case. I'm not actually saying it is, but let's pretend that's the case, and that like his contribution to like freedom in Russia or whatever has been like massive or something like that, you know?
Let's imagine,
yeah. He does this like sleazy, fucked up thing. And then maybe there's not like a super reasonable response to that, which is what I kind of feel about it. There's not a super reasonable response, and he resigns, and now like you've lost the good that he brings.
I mean,
and that might be a net loss for like humanity or whatever. I'm not actually talking about the specific guy, but generally.
I think in the arts, like when we've seen with a lot of Me Too in the US, like I think my reaction in a lot of cases is like, oh, that's sad. Because like the thing is, like, you know, there is a position that one can take that I tend to take, which is that someone who creates a thing outside of themselves, like a movie that they act in, or they write something like a book, or they make a piece of art, that art should have value, like regardless of that person's moral standing personally, right? Like that right. Individual. And meaning like, you know, like an evil person could make a piece of art that you can think is valuable. Like that's that you value, that you enjoy, or however people fucking value and like, what's the word? Evaluate art. I mean, film and movies and the movie industry has like, you know, like gotten pretty far from art in a lot of ways, but still people like Woody Allen, you know, it's like regardless of what you actually think went down there, like does that mean that whole question of like, does that mean that you're like not supposed to watch his movies or whatever? Yeah, like are you not supposed to like appreciate his movies, or do you not work with him? Like those questions. And I tend to lean on like the separating the thing that's created from the creator's moral standard.
Especially in the case where I like the thing they make.
Namely,
if I don't care about the
case.
thing they make, then I don't give a fuck.
Well, yeah.
Like honestly, if all the people that had been subjected to Me Too, like Harvey Weinstein and like Matt Lauer, like people I literally don't give a fuck about at all, then I wouldn't care, and I'd be like, yeah, those scumbags can go die. But then like when people whose work Louis C.K.
You're like Kevin Spacey
gets taken down, then I'm like, maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit on that.
Yeah, it feels, yeah. So that's the thing about the thing, like about not being too black and white about it, and the thing, sort of the thing we have a problem with within Me Too, right? Would be that kind of like non-separation. And it's like, come on, like, yes, of course there are situations like running for the Supreme Court or like president. That's a different thing. It's like, you're not creating art, you're running a country. It's like, obviously that's different, so don't get me wrong, you know, but something like an editor-in-chief. I mean, the other thing is, just as a side note, like I do have a lot of mutual friends with Kolpakov. I don't have personal first-hand experience with him, but secondhand I've been told that he just kind of, he's one of those people who just like, I mean, this is just petty and gossipy right now, but he's like one of those people who, you know, is kind of like awkward, and like he like is the kind of person who, you know, makes jokes that make people kind of uncomfortable, and then like does that thing where he's like, hey, you know, and like or like I don't know if we should include this, but this is the anecdote, is that he, you know, he was at my person who my first-hand accountant was at a conference, like a Meduza conference, where the editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed was also there. And instead of like, going up to him and being like, or them and being like, hey, really great to meet you. Like, I'm obviously much lamer than you because I'm the editor-in-chief of Meduza. He like...
Okay, well, I wouldn't necessarily say that. It's not like... BuzzFeed's not cool.
BuzzFeed is cool. BuzzFeed is so much bigger than Meduza, okay? At least it's more
bigger,
important.
But that doesn't make it cooler. Like, somebody who's an editor-in-chief at an actually good publication, in my mind, is actually much cooler
I thought BuzzFeed News we considered to be good.
Yeah, when we were like trying to get something published.
Well, whatever. Okay, fine. Sorry. Then you don't have to be like sheepish. You can just be like, hey, like, really nice to meet you or whatever. And instead, like, he like tried to like scare him. You know what I mean? It was like, whoa, like it's like, no. It's so embarrassing. And everyone's just
such a good explanation of that type of person.
Basically, he's
that's
cringe.
Really like
cringe.
summing. Yeah, cringe.
So given that like one person I know who's not friends with Ivan, but who's observed him in real life and saw it as very cringy, I can see. I mean, can't you like? I'm just like adding that in. Can't you see that kind of person like awkwardly saying something about harassment?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh God, you just like are an idiot. Like,
yeah. Yep.
You're dumb because you should know, even if you're awkward and you're insecure, but you hide it with your like clownish mask, and then you try to like, make jokes, and everyone's like, ha ha ha, but everyone really loves you who worked with you because you're like a good editor or whatever. All of that. You as an editor-in-chief should know the power of words, right? Like, you should know the power of words. You don't go making jokes like that, even if you like, because then those words are quoted, whether or not they have your awkward tone, they're quoted in like writing without your tone, and that's it,
Right.
So yeah, that's side anecdote about Vanya. But back to like the third, like making something and like not being judged for. Yeah, I think in this case,
we don't know what's lost.
We don't know. And honestly,
lost.
there are people, he's one of the founders, but there are like the person who's the editor-in-chief right now, and one of the co-founders who is the
CEO.
She was the original editor-in-chief.
Yeah, I think she's the CEO.
So like, those people are still around. Like Vanya guy is going to also be around, as he said. He's like, I'm still one of the founders, and I'm still going to like participate as much as I can. It's like everything's going to be fine at Meduza. There's capable people. That's the funny thing is that a bunch of like, or not a bunch, but at least 2 publications have like publicly posted on Facebook offering him a job.
Oh my God.
Isn't that so lame? They're like, you can come work with us.
Or more like righty things?
No, like older, I don't know, independent ones, You can come work with us. It's like, ew. I mean, no. The like state media is okay. Let's get into the hypocrisy via the state media, which is, remember the she's not the journalist. She's the editor-in-chief of RT. Yeah, who did
obviously remember our favorite chinless gal.
Yeah. Right. So she did that interview with those 2 blokes.
The 2 chaps. 2 lads just having a nice time in Salisbury.
Yeah, Salisbury chaps. Right. So she, which is also hilarious. But anyway, she writes on Twitter. So this is like from her personal Twitter account. She's like, I'm not going to say anything about what's gone down at Meduza, except for, of course, that like it's impossible for anything else to have happened there. Like that's exactly what would happen there, basically. And then she's like, being an absolutely liberal, like I have liberal sort of like principles or whatever. For a long time, I haven't interacted with our so-called liberal, in Russian it's tusovka, but like the scene. Not because I work, in quotes, for Putin, but because of the level of hypocrisy, the like straight up lying, the dumb lying, the smart lying, the self-deception, etc., intolerance to dissidents, and the royal condescension to their own, like Sfaim, their own. Let them go ahead and fuck their own 12-year-old daughter. That's what it says.
Jesus.
Yeah, editor-in-chief. But not let them. It's more like they could have. It's like they are so this like liberal. I don't know, group or whatever, scene, it's more like a scene, is like so hypocritical and so sort of like incestuous that they could do something like way more heinous, and like I wouldn't be surprised or something like that. So that's
God, this nut job. It's like the
great.
first part was like reasonable or whatever. Like I'm sure there's an intense hypocrisy within any sort of like liberal media company, but she really runs off the rails with that child.
Yeah, the child. It's like suddenly I was just like looking at the last sentence and I was like, I think you maybe made a mistake.
That's not appropriate, Mrs. Lady.
Yeah, or maybe it's not. No, it is. It is.
The other,
it is that.
Maybe it's not 12. The other, like kind of, obvious. We talked about this in the beginning, like the hypocrisy around the Meduza thing is the fact that they have been like one of the outlets to kind of lead the charge against Leonid Slutsky.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we can talk about a little bit, which is basically like back in the wintertime, I think like late February, early March, a bunch of female journalists accused a Duma deputy, Leonid Slutsky, of sexually harassing them in like various ways. And it's like, I don't know. To me, it's like obviously clear that, yeah, he totally
touching
did that.
and speaking?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Saying things, trying to kiss them, touching, like pushing people against the walls, asking them out to dinner, like not talking to them if they wouldn't like accept his advances in some way. Like a lot of, I think like 7 women from different outlets said like over the years he had done this. And basically like, yeah, I mean, I alluded to this earlier, but the response from like other Duma members for the most part was like, really just trash. I want to pull up some of the quotes actually quoted in Meduza. And the point of this is just to like talk about the media response to this, which was like nice in some ways. Like all the like more liberal outlets during this time started boycotting the Duma, and then as a result got their press passes revoked. So there was like a concerted effort to kind of like support the women that had accused Slutsky of doing these things. But the responses, even from the head of the Moscow Journalists Union, Pavel Gusev, I've been watching all this with surprise, with irony, and even with a little laughter. After 7 years, this person suddenly starts saying that Slutsky somehow touched her in his office. I take matters seriously when journalists are really harassed. This is like the person that's supposed to be protecting journalists.
Oh my God. I love that. I love that argument of like suddenly. It's like fucking, what is wrong with you? Don't you get that this is like people don't talk about this, and then there's like it's like a social pressure thing. Like, how do people not get that? It's crazy.
I know, because they're complete idiots.
It's crazy.
Then Zhirinovsky said, "This is suspicious. If there was any harassment on his part, then why did you wait until the election to ask me about this? Why didn't you come to him with these allegations? Why didn't you appeal to the ethics committee in LDPR, which is the party? We don't smoke, we don't use alcohol, and we don't harass women."
Oh my God. Well, Zhirinovsky is a complete shit show, so whatever.
Well, yeah. This is the like classic quote from Anton Morozov, who's the State Duma deputy. "Mr. Slutsky, this is outrageous. Share some of this with the other members of the International Affairs Committee. I'm prepared to take a couple of journalist girls myself." He's like a disgusting fat oaf with a goatee. I mean, a lot of the stuff is like in that vein, not so severe, but even the women in the Duma, Tamara Pletnova, "We don't live in America or in Europe. Why should we copy everything they do? If a woman doesn't want attention, then nobody will harass her. I'm confident that women and men have had equal rights in Russia since 1917. They can study if they want, and they can work if they want."
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the other thing that kind of comes up is like this idea that accusing men of harassing you is like an American
From the
export,
West,
from the West, which like maybe that is actually true in some ways. Like it got popularized in the U.S. It seems like.
Well, the MeToo movement.
Yeah, the MeToo movement. Yeah.
I mean,
and
but
I wonder too if like corporate like 80s anti-harassment like work videos also were an American thing to start with.
I mean, that's such. But now there's like a new wave of corporate like anti-harassment workshops and shit.
Yeah,
yeah. But the people saying like, oh, just leave us alone with your Western liberal ideas. We just want to harass and be harassed. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, to a lighter level, what people were saying, some people were kind of saying on Kolpakov's Facebook page, because like some of the, like when you start making excuses for someone, instead of just saying like, wow, that was gross, like
Yeah.
Ew. And you start making excuses about being like, why is it such a big deal? You know, why can't you just do that? It's like, well, you sound like an idiot now too. Like, what do you mean? Why is it such a big deal?
Also, I understand why people feel like particularly betrayed by this happening at Meduza, because they probably look to Meduza as like a champion of this sort of thing.
And there's just so many good, okay, so people definitely feel actually upset about that because of Meduza's like role in things like, that's a good point in the Slutsky case, or in doing things like what I said of, you know, making those educational sort of like editorial things that they like to do, you know, which in their own way help to sort of like liberalize their readership, because it sort of like, you know, demythologizes or demystifies these phenomena and concepts that, you know, are popular in the States right now or in Europe. It's true. Like, that is, you know, there is their position, like their propagandistic position in that sort of as like being like, we have this liberal like agenda and we're going to see it through.
And it's a little paternalistic.
Yeah, I mean, the whole educational thing. But there was an amazing meme. I think maybe it's possible that Lentaroo made it, but I could be wrong. They definitely posted it.
That's very petty. Lentaroo is the progenitor of Meduza, or the other way around?
People from Lentaroo left and formed Meduza.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So because of some like issues, scandal, corruption stuff or whatever, I forget. So somebody wanted to control the company or something, whatever. People left Lentaroo and made Meduza. La 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 is like a new baby project not that long ago, 4 years ago. They just celebrated their 4th birthday. Meduza. Lentaroo posted the day after the editor-in-chief gets like, you know, welcomed back. Like, it looks exactly like what a Meduza educational card set would look like. A set of 10 cards.
Font, color, and everything.
Yeah, the color, the logo, the font, and everything. And then it has like this little, also in the Meduza style, diagram of like a woman's ass, evidently.
No. That's not... Is that her ass?
Oh, is that her boob?
It's a pair of tits. Yeah.
Good question.
It's tits. No, it's definitely tits.
Well, it's really actually amazing how it could also be an ass with like a butt crack showing.
Yeah, a butt crack showing, but it doesn't have any legs. I guess she could be wearing a dress.
Yeah, okay, but you're right. It's probably tits. Sorry.
Yeah.
And like, because, you know, these little things, they'll have like the topic could be like a question or whatever that's answered in 10 cards. You know,
and it has a little red hand.
Like a how-to. Yeah, so it's like a sort of sketch of tits with a red hand touching it, one of them. And it's like, how to touch your colleague's wife and not get fired. Or like, sorry, it's a question.
It's a really
how
appealing...
do you touch your colleague's wife and not get fired?
That's good.
It's really funny. Lentaroo also said, as a sign of protest against sexual harassment, we will be, this is intense, we will, like from this point on, not link to Meduza.
Whoa.
Yeah. Though it's like,
okay.
Though in parentheses,
let's see how long that lasts.
Then parentheses are like, though we didn't really do that much anyway. So that's an example of another like liberal independent paper, which obviously has some,